Morning, everybody. My name's Christopher Cunningham. I hope some of you have found me after watching me with the Saints Unscripted group. My video with them should drop today. I had a great time with them. What we talked about is ways that we can find faith or keep our faith in the light of difficult problems. So I want to start using my YouTube channel to address that topic as well. So since we've been talking about the temple a lot recently, I wanted to start off with something with the temple. And let's start off with something pretty controversial, and that's temples and masons. People love to say Joseph Smith just stole the temple ceremony from the Masons. And what are the facts? Well, Joseph Smith joined the Masons in Nauvoo, and then just a couple weeks later, he implemented the temple ceremony. And guess what? There's some similarities to the Mason ceremony. So what is going on? Is this proof that Joseph Smith is a fraud and made everything up? Probably not. Probably not. Lots of Latter-day Saints know about the connections between the temples and the Masons, and they continue to believe in the church and believe in Joseph Smith and believe that he taught them how to get closer to Jesus Christ. And so there's not a reason why just learning about these connections makes you have to stop believing. There's lots of reasons why these connections should be. I certainly don't know which one is true. I'll tell you when I'm done with them, kind of what my personal beliefs are. But the bottom line is lots of Latter-day Saints know about these issues, and lots of them have been able to work through these issues in their own ways. And here's some of the ways that work for people. The first one is that Joseph Smith actually already had the endowment, or the teachings, that it had been revealed to him by angels over a period of time. We know this because some parts of the temple ceremonies had begun as early as Kirtland. So perhaps that the Lord was teaching him and developing him, and it was time to present it, but he didn't know how. Now, Joseph Smith's father and older brother were Masons, so he likely knew that Masons teach ritualistic teachings in their Masonic lodges, and so perhaps he went and joined as a way to get ideas about how to present the endowment information that he already had. And so the similarities, which have very little to do with doctrine and mostly to do with symbols and presentation styles, that's exactly it. That's what he went to go, is to learn about how to present it to the people. Another one that people use is that perhaps Joseph recognized some of the similarities between the Latter-day Saints and Masons. For example, most of the symbol similarities were symbols that Latter-day Saints had already been using before Joseph Smith became a Mason, and that's what attracted him to the Masons in the first place, were those similarities. And so the fact that similarities showed up in the temple shouldn't be weird, because that's the reason he joined the Masonic Lodge. So that's another possible explanation. The third is that maybe the Masons really are a group from antiquity. They survived since the very early temples, and they had kept these elements of ancient temple ceremonies. And so the reason why they show up in both is because those are real parts of the inspired temple ceremony. Now, the evidence only shows Masons existing to the Middle Ages, but then again, it can be hard to find 1,000-year-old evidence of people trying to stay secret. So it's a possibility, and I know it's something that some people give credibility to. Another thing, a fourth way that a lot of people understand it, is that a lot of the similarities between the two are symbols or ideas that are also from the Bible. So it's not just Latter-day Saints and Masons, it's Latter-day Saints, Masons, and the Bible. And so the reason why they're similar isn't because Joseph Smith was taking from the Masons, but because they are both being inspired by the same God that inspired the Bible, or at least the Masons are pulling from the Bible, and Joseph Smith was getting revelation from the Lord, the same Lord of the Bible. So that's also a possibility. And so because most of those things are coming from the Bible, it just wasn't a big deal that they both existed. As for the timing in that case, it might just simply be a coincidence. Joseph Smith joined the Masonic Lodge in Nauvoo the first day he was able to. So it's not like he finally had the idea of, oh, I need to go to the lodge. He joined it as soon as he could, and maybe that timing just lined it up with when the saints needed the endowment, which, again, they barely had the endowment in time to start it in the Nauvoo temple. So it really was sort of on the Lord's timetable about when they could get it. So maybe those timelines just happened to line up. A fifth possibility is we know that the endowment, the teachings of the endowment, the actual endowment, and then the way the endowment are taught are different things. So the Lord teaches us in ways that we can understand. And so Masons, they were very successful in teaching kind of ritualistic things in mid-19th century America. In fact, a lot of the early church members were also Masons, most of them before Joseph Smith. So it wouldn't really be odd for Joseph Smith and the Lord to use similar teaching methods to what the Masons were using, because that worked for the people in the culture of that time. And if they're trying to teach those same people in that same culture, why wouldn't you use the techniques that seem to work? And then lastly, is what Terrell Givens, who if you watch the video, you know I love, he calls it horizontal revelation. He says, usually we think of revelation as Joseph Smith talks to the Lord talks to him, or Joseph Smith talks to an angel and like this. But Joseph Smith saw Christ's church as cracking and the fragments going all over the earth, and saw his mission as going and finding those fragments. Now, most of those fragments were in Christian sects, and so we see that. Obviously, we share lots of the same beliefs with all sorts of different Christian groups, whether it's baptism by immersion that we share with Baptists, or but what's curious about the Masons is that maybe what we share with them has to do with more ancient things. They're looking for sort of Christian principles in antiquity, and so maybe that's what attracted Joseph Smith. And it seems weird because he's finding a very different sort of thing that survived there, as opposed to survived in Christian sects where he was pulling most of the revealed information. So perhaps Joseph Smith saw this, he was inspired, or just perhaps wanted to go to join the Masons because of his connection with his family or the other members of the church. And when he saw it, the Lord, he was like, oh, this is so interesting, and went to the Lord. And that's where he got revelation for the full and proper endowment. This is kind of what, this is my personal sort of approach to it, is that Joseph Smith was always looking for information, and then he would take it and then he'd pray about it. And I think that's probably what happened with the Masons, is it came in, he had a background with it, he went in, wanted to know more, saw, oh, this is very interesting, went to the Lord, and then the Lord revealed it to him in its full and accurate state. But that's just what I believe. Which one of those six is right? I mean, I don't know. Oh, I'm sorry, of course. There is one other possibility. Perhaps number 7, Joseph Smith was a complete fraud. After years of making stuff up entirely, he finally ran out of ideas during the time where he was making up the most ideas about eternal marriage and like that. But he ran out of ideas one day, apparently, so he had to go steal ideas from someone else. So he went to the one place powerful enough to fight back, and even though so many members had already seen the Mason ceremony, ripped it off, didn't make any of them mad. They all went to the ceremony, the temple ceremony, saw the same thing, and somehow didn't get mad and still believed that it was revealed from the Lord. So maybe that happened too, I guess. It doesn't really seem like a very convincing possibility to me, but I know a lot of people do see it that way. I'm not here to tell you which one to believe, but lots of faithful Latter-day Saints have found one of those answers convincing. It fits in with their faith and how they understand the Lord works. And that's how I understand the temple and Masons.